Welcome to yet another great Friday. I'm Dan Van Zalen. This is Speaking for Him with your host, Andrew Gomison.
Hello, Dan. It's great to be with you. And as you know, we have done over the years several book club podcasts where we review a book and we invite you to listen in on the discussion. We've always invited people to participate in the discussions as well. And Denise Dykstra has come along for, I think, at least one of these discussions. So we've gotten a little bit of feedback, but schedules and the time necessary to produce each book club episode has necessitated some changes in format. So what I'm about to share with you is an interview that I recorded with Naomi Van Harn, my longtime book club co-host, and it will detail some of the changes that we have in store for you, and then I'll come back with some final thoughts. So,
Alrighty.
We're going to roll this interview now. Hello, this is Andrew Gomison with the Speaking for Him podcast, and you may realize that it's been a while since we did a book club podcast, and we're here. I have Naomi on the phone, and we're going to talk to you a little bit today about the changes that are coming to the Speaking for Him book club. Shortly, well, I shouldn't say shortly after, but a couple months after we recorded the last book club podcast, which was way back in September or October, I think. I don't remember. It's kind of hard to keep them straight with how far ahead I record these days. But shortly after that, Naomi and Denise, who's been on the show a few times, both expressed that they didn't have the same amount of time to devote to the book club podcast, and it really hadn't exploded the way we were expecting or hoping it to in its previous format. So we're just here to talk a little bit about some changes that are coming, and then just talk to you about what else books. So, Naomi, one of the reasons that we are changing things up is because you are a lot busier these days. Is there anything you'd like to share about that?
Yes, we started homeschooling last year, and the first year we kind of took it easy. We were kind of seeing where the kids were at and what we needed to work on, and so this year we went into it knowing that there were some areas we wanted to really focus on, on top of their regular schooling. And I give credit to all those moms who homeschool, because even though I was homeschooled, I now realize how much work it is. So, I was telling someone, I do so much reading now with them with school, I barely have time for myself. So yeah, but it's been really, really good. So yeah, I just felt like I couldn't give the quality of time and everything to the book club. So
well, and definitely being a family ministry, that's something that I want to respect, because it would be hypocritical of me to demand that Naomi was here 5 times a year as she has been previously, and neglect her family in the process, because my mission statement would go out the window. So we're not going to go down that road. And but what we are going to attempt to do is to get together still a couple times a year and tell you a little bit about the books we've been reading, so then you can still have some ammo and some information for good books to read. Now, as I'm recording this, we're coming up on the summer months, and a lot of times there's summer reading clubs in the libraries, so hopefully these few selections that we talk about will be good for you as an individual. Potentially there might be some family selections too, but I think the 2 titles that I want to talk about today myself will be more for the individual. So let's just jump right in, and the first one I want to talk about myself is I just finished a very long biography of Ulysses S. Grant. It's simply called Grant. It's by Ron Chernow, and I did it in audio, and it was 48 hours long. So I don't know how many pages that translates to, but if you haven't studied Ulysses S. Grant, you need to. I think it's very important, especially for the African American community, if I can use that term. I know not everybody who's black is from Africa, but for sake of simplicity, let's just say he was a real champion to the African American. He was anti-slavery. He was one of the first Americans to pay black people a living wage. Because even people that were against slavery sometimes in that day would underpay the black people because they could. And he insisted on full price. He insisted that his wife sell her slaves because he married into a family that owned slaves, but he insisted that his wife not sell her slaves, but liberate her slaves. He was a champion of the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed black people the right to vote and the right to hold public office. And he actively talked about black people holding public office and how important it was. So it wasn't just political lip service for him, it was very real. And so that's why I want to recommend Grant by Ron Chernow. And I am currently reading The Covenant by Beverly Lewis. Now, this one might be more along the lines of family because it's Amish fiction. But again, the one thing that I like about Beverly is she talks about the Amish in a respectful way, but she also just talks about how it's not on ceremony that we base our salvation. It's on the fact that only Jesus can save. And so those two are the titles that I want to share with you right now. Again, now I'll go to Naomi and see what selection she has that you might want to check out this summer.
I just wanted to ask, is the Covenant fiction or?
It is fiction, yes. Beverly Lewis is largely, I don't know if she's written any nonfiction actually, but my understanding is that she came from an Amish background, or at the very least a Mennonite background, so she has a lot of first-hand knowledge of the culture that she writes about.
Mm-hmm. My mom has several friends that were formerly Amish, and so those are always interesting to read. Mine are true stories. The first one, the one we are reading as a family, is I had mentioned it to you before, Andrew, sorry. The Children's Blizzard by David Laskin, and this is a true story about the 1888 blizzard. I know everybody right now was like, please don't even say that word, but we started reading it in January, and it just made us very thankful for modern day homes and appliances, and but it's really interesting. And a part of it that I thought was really interesting was he tells about the individual people's stories before they come to America. And so I didn't realize there was so much poverty in Europe in the 1800s, and that was why there was this migration of people coming over here. And for many of them, it was the first time they owned land. So I really enjoy history, and so this was something I've been wanting to read. Stephen actually told me about it because he was reading the I Survived series. That's a great series for young teens, teenagers. It's kind of historical fiction, but it's based on true events. So it's The Children's Blizzard by David Laskin. And then another one that I would recommend, this is just a book I recommend. I haven't read it recently, but the title is Goodbye is Not Forever. It's a true story by Amy George, and it was written with Harold Jansen. I think I'm saying his last name right. And this, I just have a little backstory. My dad was listening to the radio, and this was when I was a late teen, like 17, 18 years old. And he came home and he said, Naomi, you've got to read this book. My dad does not remember names well normally he doesn't remember names. And he could remember the title and the name. Like, that's how big this story impacted him, listening to it on the radio about, I think Amy George was being interviewed. And it made such an impression on him that he immediately, like I said, he came home and he said, you've got to read this book. So that's Goodbye Is Not Forever. It is about a Russian girl. I think it starts out before World War II. So it's kind of that 1930s, and it just tells the story of her life and how God, even before she became a Christian, she could look back and see how God was pulling her to him. It's just a really, really good book. Not the happiest, but it's a really just inspiring story.
All right, well, thank you for those two selections. So that's Goodbye Is Not Forever and The Winter Blizzard. Those were Naomi's choices for us, and I hope that you guys can enjoy some of these titles that we've talked about today. This is the new format for the podcast, so what's going to happen is sometime around August, before school starts again, we will probably record another one of these podcasts just to let you know what we've been reading throughout the summer and to give you some more feedback. If you want to tell us what we should be reading, you can leave feedback at the Speaking for Him Facebook page. Actually, it's really, it'd be really neat in my mind if we could get the Speaking for Him Facebook page much more active and have people having conversations in there and even see civil disagreements. You know, I don't want a lot of long, drawn-out disagreements, but civil disagreements would be fine, you know, because I want people discussing what's happening on the show and giving their input. So I just want to make sure that you are aware that that is something that we want. And like I said, I just want to thank Naomi. Naomi is the one that came up with the idea for the Speaking for Him Book Club. She's put a lot of effort into coming to the studio most of the time to do the reviews. We've had a lot of fun together. And as I sat and talked with her last week, I told her that I wanted to figure out a way that we could retool this so it didn't have to end, and I think we've come up with a good compromise. So, Naomi, thank you for staying involved. All the best to you as you continue your homeschooling journey. Super proud of you for that, and it should be fun this summer with all new opportunities for learning and field trips and that kind of good stuff. So, I hope.
Yeah, and let us know what you're reading. You know, like everyone out there, let us know what you're reading.
Absolutely, we'd love to have a huge discussion going about the best books to read, books that would not only fill our time, but would fill our minds and our hearts with quality. So that would be very good. All right, well, thanks for your time today, Naomi. And like I said, we'll do this again toward the end of the summer, and I look forward to it.
Sounds good.
All right, and I know I say this a lot, but we're going to try at the end of May to begin putting together the Pilgrim's Progress recordings for you, and so hopefully you'll have those by late summer or early fall to listen to on the podcast. I think I keep mentioning it as a reminder to my own self, so if you're getting sick of hearing it, I'm sorry, and hopefully it will become a reality soon. All right, thank you, Naomi, for joining us. Have a great evening.
You too, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and there you have my interview with Naomi Van Harn about the changes that are taking place for the Speaking for Him Book Club, and I hope that you will stay tuned with us. Literature is still something that I care a great deal about, and I want to make sure that people are reading. It's been said commonly that readers are leaders. I really believe it. If you can read, you can go anywhere. You can study and reflect on a lot of different ideas, and you can do more than just take people at their word all the time. I think one of the worst dumbing downs of our culture is the fact that we read one single news headline or we watch a YouTube video and we say, well, they said it on YouTube, I saw it on the internet, so it must be true, instead of taking the time to read and really study an issue. And so that's why I think reading is so important. And, you know, like I said, there was a lot about Ulysses S. Grant that I never knew until I delved into this book. Now, there were points where I got a little discouraged just because it was so long, but it was ultimately worth it. And I really want to encourage the adults in the audience to listen.
Or I'll be honest.
Read that.
There's only one book I've ever quit reading because it was too long and dry. And that book was, I think 1,400 pages long.
What do you remember what the name of it was? Or at least the topic.
It was about a samurai, but I don't remember what the title was. And it was so dry and slow. It's like, why am I reading this?
Well, and we may talk about this as a topic on the podcast in the future, but that is one reason why I have yet to complete the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Really?
So
I've read that like 4 times.
Well, that's awesome. And I definitely
and the Silmarillion.
I definitely have certain books that I have read that many times that I really appreciate. And maybe that's a future book club idea is for us each to go around, and hopefully Naomi will be in the studio for the next one. We'll each go around and talk about one or two books that's so good that we have no problem reading them over and over. And we could be here for a while because
yeah, a couple hours easy.
Yeah, because I have some pretty good selections on that score as well. But I hope that it has given you some food for thought as we go into the summer months. And I want to say to you, happy reading, have a great weekend, and keep serving the best of masters.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Your host has been Andrew Gomison, founder of Speaking for Him. For more information on today's show and to leave us comments and voicemails, visit speakingforhim.blogspot.com. You can find Andrew's ministry at speakingforhim.com. That's speaking, the number 4, HIM. You can also interact with us at facebook.com/speakingforhim and on Twitter @SpeakingForHim. And when you look for us on iTunes and Stitcher, let us know what you think of the podcast by leaving a rating and review.